You're listening to the Friends Talking Nerdy Podcast Network.
Friends Talking Nerdy. If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim the Nerd coming at you. And sitting right next to me, we have here Holiness, who's podcasting for two, the Reverend Tracy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's a long day today, so we just did our news segment this morning for Fearlandia. Every year we do a news segment with Coin 6, and, you know, I've really taken particular joy in harassing Core. So we had that going. Oh, sorry, my phone sound is obviously on. But so anyway, we had that this morning.
Nice.
And it went really well. We actually had more volunteers show up than we normally have. So we had a good number of people, and we're really able to make people feel like we were awake. You know what I mean? we really amped up the energy and had a good time because everybody, you know, genuinely was like excited to be there and be a part of it. So it was really cool. Good way to start the day, just very early.
Yeah, I mean, as we mentioned on the show, I'm actually working with you all at Fearlandia 2 this season, and we won't go into it too much now because we are recording a show that we will be releasing at the beginning of November that will go more into detail about our journey this month, but it really has been fun.
Yeah, I mean, so far, at this point, we've had our opening weekend. Mm-hmm. And we're spinning up on our second weekend. So my humble opinion is always that these shows marinate and get better as the season progresses. So starting off as well as we have, I'm super excited to see what we end up with by Halloween week. Okay. I obviously did not turn my volume off like I thought I did.
Oh, dear you.
We're strict professionals here.
Yeah. Oh, also, too, you want to sit back a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm being instructed. I just don't want to knock over the camera. It's like on a cushion precariously between us.
Well, no camera here. It's just the mic, but I want to make sure the mic actually picks up everything you have to say here. But yeah, I mean, I being able to dress up, being in makeup, and just scare people, and be a different character for the first time since my 20s when I was in theater in college. That was a great feeling, and it was fun making all like the 20-year-old women like scream in a good way.
Yeah, oh gosh, that's what she said. But yeah, it was really good time. We definitely had some really decent screamers on Saturday night, and we had a good handful of quits. We've actually started our dry erase board of how many people admit to, from peeing themselves a little bit to quitting the haunt. So, I mean, granted, we get to count the quits, because normally, if it's not myself, the assistant casting director, or one of the two leads, like, there's always somebody in that emergency hall in the middle.
Yeah.
Like, I pretty much try to chill there until I notice somebody else come through there, because if there's somebody who needs to leave, we would rather be there. For example, parents who decide to bring their small children in, and then that child is then terrified. And it is kind of something I try to make them laugh before they leave if I can, because I want that child to remember that we are just humans playing a game. Like, there weren't real demons in here, because, it goes to that children don't always know what's real at certain ages. And there's just a point where I'm like, maybe don't take your young child to a haunted house, even if they really, really think they can handle it. Like, take them to something puffball, not one made for adults.
Yeah, because you have the idea of a haunted house. Like, you don't really understand what goes into a haunted house until you're there, because a lot of it is dark. There's a lot of loud noises, and they do stuff to intention. As we talked on our last week's episode from the archives with David D. Jones, they are designed to disorient you. Mm-hmm. And obviously, when you're a kid, you can put more into a scary shadow or a scary noise than an adult, because adult has more history to go back from to say that's just a noise.
Right. We know as adults we're more likely to easily believe that's just insert blank. That's an actor. That's a a drop panel making that loud noise. That's just a effect that's playing in the room next door. You know what I mean? You know that this is a haunted house. It's likely very, very safe. And the screaming that you're hearing around the corner was paid for. And that is actually the sound of a pleased customer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but kids just aren't there yet. So that's just the one thing that every season I feel like there's at least one small child that I'm like, but why?
There was one kid that came into line when I was there. And I told you about him in the car, and you'll hear about it in a month. But he came in, young guy, glasses, and then he came up to me, will you give me a high five? And I'm like a bald lurch type of character. I'm supposed to be menacing and evil, but I gave him a high five. I had to.
Oh, I mean, you had to look huge to him, too, because part of why is because you're so tall anyway, and then with your Doc Martens, you're basically a giant, to especially, like, a little that little. But, anywho, it's been a very good time so far, so I'm excited.
Yeah, for folks wondering, you know, the folks at Fearland were like, we need somebody who's tall, menacing looking, and doesn't talk that much. And the Reverend was like, I know somebody.
Let me see if he's interested. And he was. And that's why Tim actually gets to kind of see me in casting director mode this year, which I feel like is probably weird because I'm not normally, I don't know.
I wouldn't say, I would say yes and no. No, because in a lot of ways you do bring that organizing presence to the show here. I mean, you very much do.
Well, maybe not for you then, but
on a bigger
friends.
scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, on a bigger scale. That's why, you know, like, you know, when I am at the haunt and I see you working, it's just like, yeah, now's not the time to go talk and say, hey, I saw this on Instagram. You know, let Tracy work.
Like, the Reverend is busy. They are definitely working right now. So just let the Reverend do their thing.
Indeed. But before we dive into our main event this week, we do have some comments here from listeners of the show in previous episodes, and they both happen to be about our GMO episode. Why don't you open it up with our first comment?
Yeah, so this is from a friend of the show, and my personal joke with him is alternate reality husband, John Nelson.
Multiverse,
yeah, multiverse. So this is again about the GMOs. Absolutely not afraid of GMOs or genetically engineered foods. It's the same process of selective breeding we used since we settled and began committing to organized agriculture thousands of years ago. We're just able to do what took hundreds/thousands of years in the span of just a few. So obviously, and I think when we had even reacted to this like off the show when you first sent it to me, is this is very much kind of the Neil deGrasse Tyson more leaning view, which that's an opinion I super respect out there. So I think I'm a little bit in the same boat. I would agree with that sentiment, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've not seen any arguments that have swung me the other way against GMO devices because, again, we have a long history of artificially messing with plants, with animals to get different results.
Exactly.
And as long as there is government regulation to make sure these companies are not going overboard and also catching any sort of bad food that may result, then I don't see the harm because, non-GMO foods have just as much chance of getting, like a salmonella outbreak as anything else, really, if you think about it. Yeah. All right, the second comment here is from my lovely adopted sister, not adopted. I think I told the story. Maybe I didn't, but as a kid one day, we were both upstairs, supposed to be in bed, but our bedrooms were like right next to each other, and occasionally we would talk, and my sister and I were talking, and then out of nowhere, I was just like, you're adopted, right? And she's like, no, I'm not. And then started crying. And then the next day, my mother was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Your sister's not adopted. You look like each other.
That's like such a popular thing. Like my mom and dad or my mom was telling me about how like they made the joke that one of their brothers was like adopted at one point. Like it's such a common theme for siblings to do that to each other. It's super funny. Like I wonder where that comes from. Like we never did that. Like that never happened between myself and Chris, the Reverend's brother, if you will. I don't remember us ever doing like things like that. There was a time that I did tell him that I hope he drowned. Right? after he choked, like, he was laughing at me while taking a drink of Dr. Pepper, and he choked on it, and just with the most serious ass glare in my eyes, I looked him dead in the face and said, "I hope you drown." And there's something about that actually made us start laughing, because we both realized immediately how ridiculous that was. But nope, never lied about being adopted.
Well, that reminds me of something my sister did too. Like, we were just arguing one day, and she was downstairs just screaming, and then out of nowhere, it's like, "I am not an animal. I'm a human being." And then we both started laughing. Like, why the fuck did you bring up the Elephant Man? But...
So anywho, the comment from Colleen.
All right. Her comment is, okay, maybe not that. She said, "I went to the first march against Monsanto several years ago. I have a feeling I was one of the few that wasn't there because of GMOs. I didn't like that they had such a monopoly over our seeds. Oh, and the chemicals they've put on the planet." You know, fair point too. I mean, if there is a company that, because think of like surgical masks, and what we found out at the start of the pandemic. You know, like a majority of the surgical masks were being made in China, and once the pandemic first started hitting, China was like, "Yeah, we got a bunch of people here that kind of need them first," you know, and so it's important to have multiple avenues. So if it, you know, I don't know much about Monsanto to really speak about them. You know, good or ill, but if they do have, you know, a monopoly of sorts on seeds, not a good thing. I would definitely call for more companies having more options there. And also too, with the chemicals, you know, as we talked in that episode, you know, when you do have farmers, especially like in industrial farms, pouring all kinds of chemicals to kill everything but the plant that they want to grow, that's not healthy either.
Right. I mean, Monsanto, I don't know a lot about it either. I know I've heard a lot about it, but that's not necessarily the same as knowing anything about it.
Yeah.
They are very much, a lot of the narrative seems to be that they're kind of evil core. You know what I mean? Like, that they do a lot of really bad stuff, shady stuff. I haven't personally looked into it, though. So that might be something worth nerding out about at some point. Because, you know, those tend to be some of the cool topics, is when we're learning about something that we've been curious about but never really looked into.
And, yeah, I mean, like, I don't want... more than anything, I just don't want to form an opinion without the facts. I've been guilty of that many times in the past, and, you know, the older I get, the less I want to do that, because, you know, when you get caught spouting an opinion you have no evidence to back up, you looks like such a damn fool.
Exactly. And that's where it's like, yeah, I'd just rather take a minute and maybe learn about it before I say more. But I will say that I've heard a lot of the whole, they're an evil corporation, and if the things that I've heard are true, I would be inclined to agree, but, you know, I'd rather vet what those things are before I try to repeat them.
Indeed.
Because that's how you avoid spreading misinformation, folks.
Speaking of misinformation, that brings us to our main event this week, and we'll start off by talking about a woman in Texas.
Yes. So, essentially, Tim had shared with me, and I had seen this whole thing, you know, how Facebook has the marked safe from. And I don't even think that's something that you can do anymore on Facebook, because remember, that's what that was from, was like, I'm safe from this storm system that's here.
No, I've seen it. I have friends in Florida that have done it recently.
So I wasn't sure, because I guess I hadn't noticed and I haven't done one, but, you know, the whole marked safe from the Hocus Pocus 2, which is casting real spells through my TV. And I guess apparently what happened, I actually first saw it, I can't remember if it was John or Wendy, so friends of the show. Actually, John was the one that I read his comment at the top, but he had shared that, and I had posted, and I'd seen in there where this woman was supposedly from Texas, and that's all I had seen. And then at some point, you and I had shared it with you or something, and then you and I were chatting, and you had sent me this video from TikTok by Blair Erskine 1. So I guess, like, even some of the news channels have started spreading it as if that is the woman from Texas. And I am here to say, and I think Tim would agree now that we've both sat and looked at her TikTok together, she is not the woman from Texas. She is a parody channel, and she's really fucking funny, though, because I totally bought the fried cheese thing for dinner. But there were some clues in there, like especially the sex scenes in Ratatouille. was something that she had said.
or the whole what I've seen is a lot of people stitch the video with her comment about you don't want what's on the TV coming onto you, which is the thing I did where I stitched it to like a scene from the Black Widow movie and like, oh my god, please be true, please be true.
Right. And then I still love the one guy that I saw his stitch of it that, you know, we only watch family videos, or, you know, a version of Ratatouille without the sex scenes, and it cut to this guy going, what the fuck version of Ratatouille are you watching?
The European cut, folks.
So anywho, she's very funny. She's got like really long long red hair, and
She's
so
a ginger.
well, is she? I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't look to see because I think that's technically freckles on the face or something like that. But I didn't notice that. But just, you know, so that's a parody person. She is quite funny. We watched a little bit of her running for Georgia video where she was making fun of some things. But anywho, the other person is a real person. She is from Texas. I know we looked up her name, and Tim had joked with me asking if I knew her because she happened to be from Central Texas. But that's about as much recognition as I think I want to give her, because boy howdy, way to go, Texas, making me proud that I've left yet again.
No, the only reason I asked, like when in the text, the response you gave made it seem like, oh my god, I think I know this person. Maybe I read into it, but that's why I thought. But yeah, and it's interesting, and I'm not going to throw shade at the South, because growing up where I did in Grand Rapids, I know people that, you know, would believe what that woman believed as well. I don't think that's specifically a regional thing, but on the flip side, there's one part that I don't really like about that, and that's because the news media is now using this woman as all these people who believe this certain thing are kooks type of attitude, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of that, and I think in a weird, more symbolic way, because we've talked about the programming in TV and how it is kind of social programming because it does normalize certain behaviors. That what's weird is, in a sense, what the parody person said is not incorrect. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if the original Texas rant included that, but I can speak for what Blair Erskine was talking about. And it's like, yeah, like there is kind of a little bit of sense where I would agree with that statement. But it is kind of, I'm sorry, really thinking that it's witchcraft through the TV, because it takes me back to Harry Potter.
Yeah.
In Texas particularly, because that's what I could speak for, is I remember so many scared mothers in the Bible South that were scared that Harry Potter is going to have real potions and real spells in that there book. Like, that was totally a thing for a while there, and especially because she wrote another one, you know? So it just had repeat value. So it's kind of weird to see, like, kind of the same stuff coming out of Texas again, like, given that I remember feeling that was kind of ridiculous as a child. Like, I was like, they taught you that this is a fiction section, right? Like, there's two that you can go to in the library, and one is real shit and one is not real shit. This was definitely under the not real shit, so I'm just going to go with it's just play pretend and talking about characters.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the same way in Grand Rapids as well. So, again, not a regional thing. But so like, yeah, on the one hand, I don't like that the media used her voice to make it seem like more people agree with her than really do. But on the other hand, someone with ideas that outlandish does need to be laughed at a little bit, you know?
I think it warrants it. And I guess, like, I don't want to be mean about it either necessarily, but it's kind of like when you laugh when a kid doesn't know something yet. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's an interesting one. I was just like, oh, Texas.
Because Hocus Pocus 2, we're talking about a mediocre movie from the 90s that hit it big on VHS or video after it bombed in theaters, and it has a sequel on Disney Plus. It's not exactly going to be like the next Avengers Endgame here. You know, it has a very small, limited audience, and all that woman and the newscaster did is really let more people know that it's out.
Oh, yeah, very true. I mean, granted, I've been knowing for the better part of a year that they were doing this. Mm-hmm. That's because I am a Hocus Pocus fan, Tim.
That's
And,
okay. There are plenty of movies that I
know.
like.
I'm
Yeah.
allowed to love the things that make my weird little heart happy. And that is one of those movies that definitely ticks those marks for me. It makes my weird little heart happy. I love Bette Midler in that movie. I just think she amazingly got into this really goofy character, and I just completely understand the following that it got. Like, but hey, like that's happened to other movies too, though, where it'll bomb in the box office,
Rocky
but then
Horror.
for some, Rocky Horror, I was gonna say, and now that one's literally a fucking cult classic.
Not only a cult classic, but I think the most financially successful movie of the 70s.
Yes, and I love that, like, Tim Curry still loves that he did that. Like, he was supposed to be at the Haunters convention that I couldn't go to, with the whole stand idea being at Rocky Horror Picture. I thought I was finally going to get to meet him. I was going to stand in that line however long I needed to for his autograph. And I'm pretty sure that was the 2021 that got canceled. Because I'm pretty sure it was either for some reason I couldn't go, or it got canceled. And I'm pretty sure that's the one that got canceled.
Okay. Well, that brings us here to our main event this week. So we're talking about Halloween.
Yeah, so it's spooky season. Because Halloween season, because we don't just celebrate it on the day of. It is available, and there are events all throughout the month. Even you start seeing stuff becoming available even in late September now. So I think it is a season. It's a season I really love. But something that's always been controversial is what day it falls on, right? Because I even remember as a kid, I was always bummed when Halloween was like on a Monday or Sunday through Thursday, because you knew your parents weren't going to let you out. Trick-or-treating is late, and it was just going to be, even if they did, and no matter what time you came in, you're going to be so wired from having all the sugar, you're not going to sleep well, and the next day at school is going to be absolute, rat turds.
Yeah.
So, like talking about whether Halloween should be moved permanently to a Saturday, which... we go by ProCon.org. This happened to be on there. That's why I was like, holy shit, we should totally do this since it's spooky season, right?
Indeed.
Now, I've also heard argument for moving it to Fridays. So, but this is specifically, should Halloween be moved permanently to Saturday?
Indeed. And yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, we'll dive into it. But in a way, it does make a little bit of sense here. Start off with pro number one.
Yeah, so pro number one, celebrating Halloween on a Saturday would make the holiday safer for children. A study found an 83% increase in fatal crashes involving children and a 55% increase in pedestrian fatal crashes when Halloween falls on a weeknight. There's been an increase of at least 21 fatal crashes every time the holiday fell on a Friday since 1994. So that's interesting. Safe Kids Worldwide stated, quote, twice as many kids are killed while walking on Halloween than any other day of the year, end quote. 82% of parents don't add high visibility aids such as reflective tape or glow sticks to their kids' costumes, and 63% of trick-or-treaters don't carry flashlights, according to the Halloween and Costume Association, an organization that created a petition to move Halloween to Saturday signed by over 150,000 people. Moving Halloween to a Saturday would allow trick-or-treating to begin in the daylight hours, reducing risk of fatal crashes and eliminating the need for costume safety alterations and flashlights. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said fatal crashes can occur on Halloween when trick-or-treaters dart out into the street unexpectedly. Communities could create safer walking conditions on Saturday Halloween by blocking off selected roads, which wouldn't be practical on weeknights when people are returning home from work.
Pretty straightforward and to the point. I mean, basically, it sounds like what the idea is to treat Halloween like we do on Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is always the third Thursday of November.
Yes.
It doesn't fall on one specific day. So, and to your point, yeah, I mean, I remember the few times I did Halloween as a kid, doing it on a Wednesday night, not really that fun. So having the ability to have it on a weekend to where, to the article's point here, because a lot more people are going to be having days off on the weekend, there will be more chance for daytime events so that people can be safe, and there would just be more people around. Now the dangers of kids getting run over, I mean, that is going to be there regardless, because kids getting excited with candy, dressing in costumes, they're going to do unexpected things at times.
Right.
It can happen.
But there is the point there of it being on Saturday, being able to do it in the daylight hours. So, like, why? I guess it almost sounds like they're saying, why not alter it completely to put odds in the favor of kids not being hurt, right? Because that's also daylight hours. There's less hijinks. Daylight hours, when you live in colder climates, like, God, I remember in Texas, you never wanted, like, the really thin costumes. You wanted something you could wear layers under, because sometimes your temperature would just dump on you and be really cold or rainy or etc., right? So there's even a lot of point there to maybe not sticking it at night, but maybe doing it during the day.
And think about how it could be tied in with businesses as well. I mean, a lot of times malls, for instance, will have Halloween events, and think about, how that could be tied in with businesses as well. Like, bring your kid in to get some candy and save 20% on the new computer. Yeah,
exactly. So con number 1, which
right.
almost directly conflicts this, but I think I just noticed kind of a very important word. Moving Halloween to Saturday would put kids on the streets on the most dangerous night of the week. Halloween is already a dangerous holiday, with about 43% more pedestrians dying on the holiday than other autumn nights. Moving the holiday to Saturdays, the most dangerous day of the week, could further increase injuries and deaths, because people would start drinking alcohol earlier in the day and consume more overall than they would on a weeknight. Drunk drivers are already involved in more than 25% of pedestrian deaths on Halloween. Ensuring that Halloween always occurs on a weekend night would lead to more binge drinking and drunk driving, making pedestrians less safe. Drivers ages 15 to 25 are responsible for nearly a third of all child pedestrian fatal accidents on Halloween. Moving the holiday to the weekend every year would likely increase the fatalities because of later curfews and a lack of school and other responsibilities the following day. Saturdays have the most fatal car crashes of any day, with a total of 5,873 during 2017, over 500 more than the second highest crash day. In 2017, there were an additional 799,000 non-fatal traffic accidents on Saturdays. 53% more road deaths occur on Saturdays than on Tuesdays, the safest day of the week. And what's really funny about this con is, to me, it's saying, okay, so Halloween doesn't cause those accidents, right? So why are we saying, nope, we can't move Halloween because we have this obvious other glaring problem that we refuse to, like, accept and address, right? Like, why are we not questioning why so many accidents happen like that?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about cars, being what they are anyway. It's just, I somehow don't like this, because it seems like they're just assuming that because it will happen on Saturday, that these accidents will just naturally happen.
Well, and there's taking the excuse of, like, this is a little bit more towards adult behavior, to be fair. This is adults would be more likely to drink, and that does put kids at risk in a way. However, I don't think this is any riskier than adults who, like, for example, 4th of July. Well, if the 4th of July falls on, like, a Sunday or a Monday, you normally get the day after off. So why don't we ever ban the 4th of July ever being on a Sunday? Because suddenly that's going to uptick the number of fatal accidents, surely, because people will be out and drunk earlier and then later and drinking more because they don't have to work the next day. Oh my.
Or New Year's or something like that. And the fact too that they're so certain here that it would lead to more, not could lead to more. It's speculation, and
I don't like the verbiage either on
yeah,
this one.
I mean you do have to take account of the numbers, and yeah, in a way it does make sense, because on a Saturday, if more people have that day off from work than normal, then you'll have more people that could potentially choose to go drinking. But that still doesn't necessarily mean that having it on I get the perfect analogy now. This is like comparing crime in a heavy city compared to a rural area. Just because there are more numbers of crime happening in a city doesn't necessarily mean that percentage-wise it's somehow more dangerous than it would be in a rural area. And I think that's kind of what's going on here,
Yeah, and it's just, to me, it's just funny to say, you can't do this because we have this other problem that we don't address, it seems.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that goes into, I find it interesting how much our speaking of programming in commercials, I mean, that's kind of where I first learned that it was cool to tie one off at the end of the day, and that's how you relax. Like, it was TV and stuff that kind of taught that in households.
Yeah.
So,
Grab yourself a bush.
Grab yourself a bush or whatever. So it's just kind of interesting. To me, the con didn't... It has a point, right? But to me, it's more pointing out, like, another issue that should maybe be addressed in spite of whether or not we moved Halloween to Saturdays.
And this is an issue that we know of. So if it was moved to Saturdays exclusively from here on out, it is an issue that, under the best case scenario, could be planned for. In terms of, let's make it to where we encourage parents to go to like one central area, like a mall or something like that for Halloween, or, block off streets, I mean, that would be a different thing as well. But if we know it's going to happen, we can prepare for it to make sure that, because we're not going to get to a point to where there will be no accidents, because like I said, kids will be kids. Like I was a kid and ran out in the road and got hit by a car.
Right, and even like in Pro 1, it was talking about, like I said, altering it all together. So if the kids are out during the daylight and instead of out at night, where somebody may take November 1st off so they can go out and drink on Halloween, I don't know. It does kind of feel like a weird con.
Yeah.
It doesn't fully sell me on it because it goes back to, but there's other problems then that maybe could be addressed. And then in Pro 1, they did kind of address it in the sense of, this would allow for certain streets to be blocked off that otherwise wouldn't. So you wouldn't have drunk drivers necessarily going through these neighborhoods because the street would be blocked off. Like, it seems like there's more benefit to moving it to Saturday, so you avoid children being out late at night on the street any night of the week.
Indeed. Especially too, because with if you got poor parents, for instance, they may be able to get up enough money to get like a little makeshift costume for their kid, but they don't necessarily have. Some parents don't necessarily have the money for the other safety accoutrements a kid would. To go out, under Halloween. So preparing for it, I think, would be the way to go.
Exactly.
All right. Pro number 2. Let's dive into it. Celebrating Halloween on a Saturday would be more fun and less stressful for everyone. Instead of rushing home from school and work to fit in dinner and homework before setting out for trick-or-treating, kids and parents could enjoy the day and do more fun Halloween activities together on a Saturday. Entrepreneur Matt Douglas noted, extended family could gather like they do for other major holidays and special memories can be made. Excuse me. When a Saturday Halloween, people who work the traditional Monday through Friday schedule wouldn't miss out on the fun of handing out candy to kids in the neighborhood. The holiday would be less stressful because parents wouldn't have to worry about kids staying up past their bedtimes on a sugar high. Plus, businesses wouldn't lose the productivity of hungover workers who attended Halloween parties. Fair point. I think one thing it is missing is that a fair number. It depends on the type of work you do. I don't think a majority of people in this country do the traditional Monday through Friday anymore. A lot of people are working, various hours in the week. Like when I worked retail, you essentially had to work at least one weekend.
I don't know. I kind of feel like, I'd be curious what the numbers are on what jobs are out there, but it's because of who you know, right? Because I do work in an office. And my normal for a long time now has been Monday to Friday. And therefore, a lot of the people I know tend to be Monday to Fridayers, right?
Yeah.
So, no, it's not everybody. It's not every parent. But it is a decent amount of the demographic. And then what's interesting is talking about, the productivity and hangover stuff. It's kind of like when you think about how normally you don't just get Christmas Eve off. Or Christmas Day, and even a lot of times in offices they try to make it so you've got the day after Christmas Day off, but most people would just do their drinking on Christmas Eve, be a little hungover on Christmas Day for awesome breakfast with the family and opening gifts, and then they're fine. And then you think of, New Year's Eve. Don't normally get New Year's Eve off, but you get New Year's Day off. So that is the night that you stay up drinking late. So it seems like it kind of makes sense, this pro of thinking of it that way, because we already seem to for other holidays and how we have days off.
And it would make it more organized, yeah, because again, think of the parents that want to celebrate with their kids, but it's a Wednesday night and they got to be up for work tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right. And then this
Yeah.
also still, again, it goes back to the, instead of somebody using personal time to plan to be drunk or like having to make that decision of, well, do I use personal time or do I just wing it hungover at my office job, right? So I don't know. I kind of agree that it would reduce some of that. Like, I'm not really a go out and drink your ass off holiday person.
Yeah.
But I understand there are a lot of people in our country that are, and as long as that is a reality, I think it makes sense to shift things around those practices.
Okay, well, speaking of that, let's dive into con number 2. Moving Halloween would ignore the holiday's ancient and religious traditions. The origins of Halloween have religious and cultural importance, tracing back 2,000 years to the pagan festival of Samhain. It's spelled Samhain. In which the ancient Celts celebrated the end of summer from sunset on October 31st to sunset on November 1st. They believed that the ghosts of the dead returned to Earth, blurring the boundary between the living and dead. Around 43 AD, the Romans, who were then ruling the Celtic territory, combined their Feralia festival honoring the dead with the Samhain activities. The Catholic Church has observed All Saints' Day, also known as All Hallows or Hallowmas, on November 1st since the mid-8th century. Halloween, originally All Hallows' Eve, or Virgil or Eve of All Hallows, takes place the day before on October 31st. How does the American tradition of Halloween matter to a religious organization?
I was going to say, I'm sorry to burst anybody's bubble who does celebrate these things, but their celebration looks totally different than the kids dressing up and trick-or-treating and the people going out in costumes and getting drunk. Like, it's so separated to me. Like, it just doesn't seem that those practices seem to have anything to do with the blurring of the boundary between the living and the dead. Now, I'm not making fun of anybody who believes that, by the way, just pointing that out. I'm just saying it's kind of like the difference between how a Catholic would celebrate Christmas and an atheist would celebrate Christmas. And there are a lot of like Christians who celebrate very similarly. Like some of those celebrations are kind of similar, right? Like the Christmas tree, the Christmas presents. You might not have a cross or Jesus on your Christmas tree, but a lot of those things look the same.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing with Halloween, right? Like that's one of those American holidays that have kind of become a little bit of a melting pot in that respect. Like for the most part, a child from a Christian home could go to the house of a child in a non-Christian home for a Halloween party, and it might not be that different than swapping it around. Now, granted, you do have your a little bit more religious people who do things like, we don't go to haunted houses because that's of the devil, but we're going to go to a hell house that's going to make abortion look really scary. Real thing. I remember I almost went to one year in Texas, like back in high school, and I thought more about it and went, no. Also didn't have the money, but also, no. I don't need to see somebody dying on a fake operation table with as much blood as they can like muster for it. But you know what I mean? But basically, just the long and short of it is, I don't think most people celebrating are doing it to these religious backgrounds, and the people who are doing it should still get to do that whenever they want to do it. Nobody says that you have to do your sew-in ritual on the Saturday if it's really the 31st.
And think about President's Day. President's Day was done to combine Washington and Lincoln's birthday, since they both happened in February.
Yep.
It's kind of the same thing here. Like, how does moving the Halloween celebration where kids are getting candy, how does that affect what Catholics do?
Right.
You know, they can still have that religious observance on October 31st. Or if there are still Celts in America that are studying the Samhain, that still follow the Samhain stuff, then they will still be able to do that.
Yes, and I think you should totally practice that. That's what you want to do. But I just don't agree that it has anything to do with the kids going trick-or-treating. So I'm just not sure it's valid to why we can't change the American recognized holiday. Mm-hmm. And now if that's a personal religious belief, like, you should be allowed to take that off of work, by the way. Like, we're protected enough at this point that is something you believe in, then you should have the right to not come in on November 1st or the 31st, like, because I'm not going to pretend to understand like the significance there, because I don't practice that. I respect that other people can practice it, and I do believe that they should be able to take that day off. Now, should everybody have that day off? I don't even really always take certain days off if I'm allowed to come in and work because I don't do anything for the holiday.
Yeah.
Like, I did feel that way about Christmas and stuff for a while, and that was a large reason I started working. Spoiler alert, Christmas photos with Santa happens pretty much up until Christmas Day. So you're not taking off really around the holiday and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into our last pro and con here. Pro number 3.
Pro number 3. A Saturday Halloween would minimize the holiday's negative impact on schools and learning. When Halloween falls on a weekday, students are too distracted to learn. Halloween parties and parades at school exclude kids whose cultures don't celebrate or whose parents can't afford nice costumes. School day Halloween celebrations, which may have sweet treats and loud music, raise potential issues for students with serious food allergies, kids on the autism spectrum, and those with anxiety. Students and even teachers sometimes cause disruptions by wearing costumes that are inappropriate, racist, or just plain too scary. Yeah, that happens. Teachers also struggle to keep students focused the day after Halloween when they have to wrangle tired and cranky kids. Retired teacher Cookie Knizbaum, which is like one of my favorite names right now, Cookie, stated that kids are, quote, going to be hyped up from the day before and they're going to try to bring their candy with them. Moving Halloween to a Saturday would get the holiday out of the classroom and allow families to decide if and how they want to celebrate, which I think that's really one of the more compassionate pros or cons I've read at this point. Because, yeah, I mean, that goes into, there's a lot of things that help support the weird, unhealthy, toddler-ran hierarchy of schools. Mm-hmm. And quality Halloween costumes is always a thing. Like, granted, it being on a Saturday doesn't mean that they wouldn't celebrate it on Friday at school, though.
Yeah.
Which, that's to each their own. I think that's kind of school districts' things to, decide. Because to me, that's the only part of this that I don't fully agree with. Because if that's the case, well, then you shouldn't do anything Christmassy, no matter how pagan or religious it is, because there are some people that don't celebrate Christmas. Like, you know what I mean? So there's most of it I agree with, but there's like that one little part that I'm like, but they'd still do it on Fridays, and I think that should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think teachers would actually prefer that too, because they, that like the last 2 hours of Halloween party, and they don't really have to do anything apart from making sure the kids don't break anything.
It's like a Friday anyway, right? Like, that's the easiest day to blow off. That's why like pep rallies are already happening on those days anyway, because you have Friday night football in a lot of like the high schools. You might have Thursday night more in middle school, but typically the Friday night football in Texas, where I'm from, was on Fridays, and that worked because it made more sense because those kids were more likely to stay up and do something after the game.
Yeah.
So then Saturday you could, chill. So our pep rallies tended to be on Friday, which also worked because it was kind of a blow off, fuck off day anyway. Mm-hmm. So it didn't really matter. It was kind of planned to be a lax Friday. So, yeah, I think it's still kind of overall I support the Saturday, even if people would still choose to do that on Friday and have a quote-unquote distracting day. I just don't think it would be any different than the day before Christmas break.
It's just the benefit, of course, would be that, it's not being done on a, the Halloween party's not on a Tuesday, and then the kids go off and eat more candy Tuesday night, and then Wednesday is a completely trashed day. I mean, teachers are already getting paid such miserable salaries across the country here that any little thing we can do to help them out, the better, because helping them out will help our kids out.
Yep. So then con number 3, which I think this one's going to delight me in a way. Moving Halloween to Saturday would allow kids more time to be mischievous. Oh no. Halloween has historically always been a night of pranks. Celebrations in colonial America included, quote, mischief making of all kinds, end quote, according to history.com. These days, kids might toss toilet paper in trees, jump out to scare people, or drink while doing those things, I think is what it meant. It's just, or drink while. Amarit Sidhu, a 7th grader at the time of this quote, stated, I think that Halloween should always be celebrated on the 31st. If it is celebrated on Saturdays, kids would go out late at night and put graffiti on signs, smash pumpkins, and egg houses. I know this from experience. It won't feel right if Halloween is not on October 31st. Many kids don't realize that pranks they think of as harmless could actually get them arrested for vandalism or assault. Some less serious pranks are still subject to community service or monetary penalties. When Halloween is on a Saturday, kids are able to stay out later, causing trouble If Halloween were always on a Saturday, they could get into the annual habit of coming up with dangerous pranks. So I do want to point out something here. I just want to point out that at no point did they actually provide any facts of more like X% of children are arrested more when it's on a Saturday versus, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that this kind of feels a little manipulative. This is very what ify. And also, it goes into the statistics here of you're punishing the majority for the actions of the loud few. Like, not every child goes out and does pranks on Halloween. I mean, for fuck's sake, the one time I almost egged a friend's house was just on a day that we decided we were mad at her at school. It had nothing to do with Halloween. That's the closest I personally have ever come to doing anything like that. Because, you know, my parents kind of... as much as they dropped the ball in some respects, my biological parents, like, I did at least somehow come out of that with, like, I shouldn't just do mean shit to people. Like, I didn't even want to egg the house. I remember almost being like, oh, thank God she's here, when I saw my bio mom's wheels, like, pull into the driveway as this marching order of kids in broad fucking daylight were walking with eggs. No, it wasn't daylight. It was nighttime. Mm-hmm. But even then, I'm going to go back to Pro 1 that talked about, but if it's on Saturday, the expectation could be that the kids are out during the day, not at night, where pranks and hijinks are just more likely to happen anyway.
And ideally, more parents will be home on a Saturday as well. This sounds like the anti-GMO arguments, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Just this could happen, so we shouldn't do this.
Yeah, they did so good at numbers and stats in the other cons that it at least gives me pause. I hate it when they don't bring in real numbers, especially when it is able to be proven, right? Like, they did talk about, like, when Halloween falls on a Saturday with some of the traffic stuff before. You know, they did. But with this one, no numbers. So that just makes me go, this feels like a talking point. This feels like kind of the equivalent of urban mything, like how with we were talking about before we started recording, that I had heard it again. Somebody really staunchly believed that I know someone who said their son came home with an apple with a razor in it. And, like, I'm not making fun of that because I understand. Like, it's been well ingrained, this whole, again, night of mischief.
Right.
When the fact of the matter is, most people just want to see kids come to their door in cute or creative costumes and give them some fucking candy. Like, that's most adults on Halloween.
And that's most kids. Most kids
just want the innocent. Yeah, they want the fucking candy. What do they get out of egging a house? Nothing. So you're talking about kids that are going to make an excuse on any given Saturday to go be up to hijinks. So, okay, on Halloween, put out more police, because at least then you're almost timing the idiocy so that you can, like you had said, you can plan for that accordingly. Yeah. Like, it even goes to some of the drinking, like, oh, but people get drunk. And I was like, and I go, well, why don't we address that then? And even then, it goes back to Pro number 1 really sold me, because it could be during the day.
Yeah.
Where people can see your costumes and kids are more visible and they don't have to carry a flashlight and their parents can be with them. Or maybe it just doesn't feel as scary to send them out in a small horde of children because it's the daylight and you know, hey, they put a notice that they're going to block off X, and X street, so you guys need to stay here. Mm-hmm. Whereas that never happens on regular, just how Halloween falls when it falls. Right? So there could be ways to kind of account for this because it's just practiced so regularly. I think we should.
Yeah, and I mean, kids are going to be dumb too. I mean, there will be kids that will go over the line, egg a house, smash a pumpkin, or do something like that. And I think those cases should be dealt with on an individual basis. I don't think it should negatively affect people that are going out and, you know, honoring the positive spirit of the holiday as well. But overall, I would support the overall holiday children activities to be done on a Saturday, because again, that doesn't, as we spoke about with the religious stuff, that doesn't you know, change anything for any sort of religious observances whatsoever. Exactly. People will still be able to take care of that, but the kids would hopefully, if it's planned correctly, be able to have fun, get candy, celebrate the wacky day that is Halloween in a much, quote-unquote, safer environment.
Yep. I happen to lean towards it. Sounds like there's more credence to moving it to Saturday, actually being able to control a little bit more, plan a little bit better, and, take it out of being a nighttime thing for kids then. And
Well,
if adults want to go out and drink and be stupid, well, again, they're going to do that just because anyway, like it seems.
But if the parents want to allow their kids to have a nighttime experience, they would have a better chance of doing that on a Saturday as well. Exactly. Because, apart from the unfortunate kids that have to go to church the next day,
Yeah, right. I mean, and like I said, it almost gets it to where it's a little bit more separated. So instead of having the kids who would be out for hijinks because it's dark out at the same time as the toddlers that just want to go around the block and like get their little bit of candy, and the kids in between that age that's still really about the candy, like it would almost lead to a separation of those groups. And would that not keep the other kids safer then? And also, if the expectation is you're going to be back home because it's like 7 o'clock and it's getting dark out, and that's your family's plan, well, doesn't that also make it less likely that a kid's going to get wrapped up with their friends and go do shit that they shouldn't be doing? So, I don't know. I think overall, I'm definitely sold on the pros. Like, I would be down to move it.
Me too, and I think that will wrap us up here for another week, unless you have anything else you wanted to say.
Oh, I really don't. Just a happy spooky season, guys. It's a fun time of year. It's one of my favorite holidays. It wasn't always the case, but it became the case. And but yeah, I'm happy that we got to kind of talk about this. Maybe we'll try to see if there's anything else we can nerd out about more Halloween related through spooky season.
Yes, like should certain people be prohibited from buying the naughty nurse outfit? Pros and cons.
Well, what's so funny is when I was looking at Spirit Halloween the other day, because our haunt is right next to Spirit, so like that's been way more like, hold on, pocketbook, you need to stay like within a certain budget. Because it's right there. But I had taken some pictures and I'd sent it to the Reverend's brother, Chris. I was like, why would anybody want to dress up as a Cheeto? And he goes, well, I didn't until you told me that costume existed, because now I can get drunk and joke about being cheesily delicious or something like that.
That could work for some people. But anyway, thank you all for listening to another episode here. Since you are listening to this, if you are listening to this live, we hope you come and see us at Fearlandia.
Yes, because if you're listening to it live, then there is an opportunity to still see us today, because we're open on Fridays and Saturdays. Right now it is 7 to 10. We do extend those hours a little bit closer to H Day, but for now it is just Fridays and Saturdays. It's actually kind of a bummer, because somebody had posted on the TikTok video where I was taking off the skin goo. Yeah, the skin goo. She was like, oh, I was sending my I think it was her son or somebody related to her. And I was like, oh my God, this was posted Sunday morning. Does she not know that we're not open on Sundays? Oops. But you can also buy tickets online, by the way. And they are within a time frame. Now, we can't always guarantee that you will get in, like if you buy a 7:30 ticket and if there's a bunch of queue because people had walked up. We can't always guarantee you'll be in at 7:30. That is just to help parse it out some, so with traffic flow and everything, to hopefully not get as much of a choke up in long queues. Yeah, because that gives some people kind of expected times to be there, and a lot of folks do opt to buy online instead of up at the gate. So I encourage that anyway. And there's also like little date night specials that'll like get you 2 tickets and a photo at the end, which we have like a high quality printer, because it's funny because that's actually the same lovely human that I have worked with for Portland Santa. So the same person that takes pictures of Santa also takes pictures of creepy haunted house things, and there's like a green screen to put an image behind you. Nice. So yeah, there's like different perks to buying tickets online. Highly encourage.
Yes, and we will have the link to do that in the show description. Yes. And yeah, we'd love for anybody listening in the Portland area to come visit us and play.
Come play with us.
Indeed. So every Saturday we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
Boo. Did I scare you?
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.